My dear listener, subscribe to this channel and like this video. It will help our channel grow faster and motivate me to make stories even more exciting. The orphanage did not have a name. The Syrinx did not name places where warriors were made. They named battlefields. The building was squat and gray on the outskirts of Rack City, its windows narrow as arrow slits. A human architect would have called it a barracks. The Syrinx called it a school. Amy Callahan called it the place that broke her heart every morning. She had taken the janitor posting 2 years ago, when the Colonial Labor Exchange offered hazard pay for Syrinx-held worlds. She had needed the money. She had not expected the cubs. 47 of them. The youngest was barely 3. A tiny tabby-furred creature named Sil who still sucked her thumb when she thought no one was watching. The oldest was Vara. 9 years old, gray-striped, with a training scar running from her left ear to her jaw. Vara woke before dawn to run laps in the cold, because she had decided she would be the fastest, the strongest, and the most feared warrior her clan had ever produced. Amy mopped floors around children who did not say please, because no one had taught them to. She made each narrow bed with a care not required by her job description, tucking the corners in the way her mother had done. The cubs ignored her. She was furniture. She was fine with that. What she was not fine with was March 8th coming and going last year with nothing. The Syrinx did not celebrate. Things given without being earned were corrupting. Amy had read the briefings, understood the logic, and still cried in the supply closet, sitting on an overturned bucket, thinking about 47 small beings who had never once received a gift. So this year she planned. The black market on Vrac City's lower docks sold almost anything if you asked quietly. Amy asked. Tulips, real ones, not synthetic. Her contact, a 4-armed Brellian trader, made 3 separate calls and charged her 3 weeks' salary. She paid without negotiating. They arrived on March 6th in cryo sleeves. 47 tulips in red and gold and deep violet, colors of fire, which even the Syrinx considered honorable. She kept them behind the industrial solvent. Sil wandered in once, blinked her enormous amber eyes, and wandered out saying nothing, keeping a secret without knowing she was keeping it, which was perhaps the purest form of trust. On the night of March 7th, Amy did not sleep. At 2 in the morning, when the security guard had settled into his hourly doze, she moved. She had mapped the dormitory over 2 years of cleaning. She knew which floorboard creaked. She knew Vara always slept facing the entrance, a warrior's habit, so she saved that bunk for last. She moved in stockinged feet with 47 tulips bundled in her arms, placing them one by one on the stands beside each narrow bed, working in darkness broken only by the green glow of emergency strips along the floor. At tulip 39, Sil made a small clicking purr in her sleep. Amy froze for 10 full seconds. Sil settled. Amy kept moving. Vara's was last. She placed the deep red tulip, the finest of the batch, on Vara's stand and stepped back into the shadow of the doorway. 47. Done. Amy retreated to the supply closet, sat on her bucket, and felt that something had shifted in the world in a way that perhaps only she would ever know about. She was wrong about that. The Syrinx woke at dawn with the efficiency of creatures who considered sleeping past sunrise a moral failing. Amy heard the usual sounds from the corridor. Feet hitting floors, the clank of the washing basin, the low growls that passed for morning conversation. Then, silence. The particular silence of 47 small beings all encountering the same incomprehensible thing at once. Amy stepped into the doorway. Vara was already standing, holding the red tulip at arm's length between 2 fingers, her expression one of extreme suspicion. The scar along her jaw caught the early light. Her eyes were gold and very sharp. "Is this poison?" she said. Amy almost smiled. She did not, because Vara would have read it wrong. "No. It's a tulip, a flower from my home planet. It won't hurt you." Vara did not lower it. Around the room, the younger cubs clutched their own flowers, watching the oldest for signals. "Why?" said Vara. "On my world," Amy said, moving slowly into the room with her hands visible. "There is one day each year when we give flowers to the women and girls we care about, not as payment, not as a reward, just because they exist." Because they are here. She paused. Today is that day. And you are here. The silence shifted. Less suspicion now, more the silence of something being processed that didn't fit any category. Small Syl lifted her tulip to her nose and inhaled. Her tufted ears went flat in involuntary pleasure. She looked mortified. Then she sniffed it again because she was 3. 6-year-old Wraith turned her violet tulip over in her hands and asked, very quietly, as if ashamed of the question, "Did we earn this?" "No," Amy said. Wraith's brow furrowed. "Then why?" "That's the point. You don't have to earn it. You have it because I wanted you to have it. Because you are worth something right now, exactly as you are, not when you're warriors, not when you've won something." Amy looked around the room. "You've never had anything just because someone thought you deserved to exist. I thought it was time." The room did not erupt into warmth the way it might have in a human story. These were Syrinx. They held very still instead, which Amy had learned was their version of being overwhelmed. Ears had gone flat across the room. Little Syl had buried her face in her flower and was absolutely not crying, and the 2 cubs beside her had moved incrementally closer without touching her. The Syrinx cub version of a hug. Vara still had not moved. She was studying Amy with those gold eyes, and Amy could not fully read what was behind them. Then Vara looked at the flower, turned it once, brought it slowly, deliberately, the way a warrior tests something new, to her nose and breathed in. 5 seconds of silence. "You are not a warrior," Vara said. "An observation, not a judgment." "No. You are gentle." The Syrinx word carried an undertone Amy's translator flagged as not yet condemned. "I try to be." Vara's eyes came back up. The scar caught the light. For a moment she looked exactly 9 years old, which was the most devastating thing Amy had ever seen. "And you are not afraid," Vara said slowly, "of being gentle." "Not anymore. I used to be. Where I come from, some people think it's weak. I don't believe that anymore." The room held its breath. Vara straightened. Not the way 9-year-olds straightened, but the way commanders did, the bearing of someone about to say something that will be remembered. "If a human woman can be gentle and still be strong," she paused, looked at the red tulip, looked back up. Her voice carried clearly to every corner of the room. "Then we can be too." No one spoke. In the corner by the window, Wraith tucked her violet tulip carefully behind her ear. Amy did not know about the security footage until her supervisor called her in 6 days later. The footage had been flagged, reviewed, and, instead of resulting in dismissal for unauthorized entry, forwarded to several parties, then several more. It traveled the way things travel across interstellar networks, far and fast. People watched a human woman move through a dark room in stockinged feet, placing flowers beside sleeping children one by one. They watched Vara hold a tulip at arm's length and ask if it was poison. They watched a 3-year-old's ears go flat. They heard what Vara said. A month later, the Syrinx WarClan's Unified Council convened an emergency session lasting 9 hours. Amy was not present. She was mopping floors. The law that passed was 3 sentences. The third said, "Female cubs of war-making age are no longer to be conscripted to frontline combat classification." Compulsory combat training for girls was struck from the code. It was not a revolution. The Syrinx were not remade overnight. Old structures take time to shift. But something had moved that had not moved in 400 years of Syrinx warclanning. Shifted quietly in a dormitory at 2 in the morning by a woman in stockinged feet who had thought 47 children deserved to receive something for free. Vara still ran her laps before dawn. Still trained harder than anyone. But she had tied the dried stem of the red tulip, with a length of cord, to the frame of her bunk. Amy saw it every morning when she made the beds. She tucked the corners in the way her mother had taught her and said nothing, because some things did not need to be said. They were just there, quiet, stubborn, and alive, which, as it turned out, was the most dangerous thing in the galaxy.